Okay, so this is how simple this is going to be. We're going to take some Mig 191 steel, make sure it's shaken all over the place. We're going to get ourselves something to mix the paint in. This is just a cotton bud lid. So take some of the steel paint. You can see there the kind of colour we're working with. We're going to take specifically my silver dry brushing brush, which is just a flat chisel edge brush. Was originally a medium sort of hardness brush. It's gone a bit crispy nowadays, and it looks like it's never been cleaned out, but it has. Metallics are really hard to get out your brush, but this is the only thing I use this brush for, so this is going to do perfectly. And what we're going to do is really simple. Take a piece of tissue, and we're going to get some paint on the brush. If you've seen my other videos, you know what I'm about to do. Get lots of paint on the brush. We're going to take most of that paint off on the tissue. Seems quite wasteful, but trust me, it's worth it. You want almost nothing left on the brush. And all we're going to do is now use that to go across this surface. Now I'm not going to dab it in like this because I want to try and get it on the raised bits and not the recesses. So I'm going to go sort of across. And it always sounds really good when you say that, and then it never quite works. And I'm going to put no pressure on at all. And I'm just going to very gently, really just drag the brush across the surface. Probably a little bit too much paint on there still. See if I can do one of these bits, you might see it better. I'm trying to go across parts rather than into the recess if I can. Now it's a slow process. It does require a little bit of patience. And you can do as much or as little as you want. If you just do a little bit, you'll just make scrapes and scratches. If you do a bit more, you'll actually recolour the whole part slowly. Now the problem with this is these recesses are quite shallow, so I'm really struggling to not get any paint in there, so I may have to live with that. But that's cool. And we're just going to build this up. Now the thing you'll know with acrylic metallics, you try and paint them, invariably they come out a bit particly, a bit grainy. It's very rare to not have that with acrylics. The beauty of doing this is that when you dry brush this stuff on and build it up really slowly, you get a nice smooth, pretty much grain-free finish. Now you can see I'm struggling to avoid getting any paint on these recessed areas, so I'm just going to go with the flow, go where the chaos of weathering takes me, and just live with it. And this is what I've been saying to a few people over the last few days. Have asked me various questions about things like, you know, how do I mix various colours and things like that for weathering, and it's like, don't overthink it. Weathering is natural, weathering is chaos. There's no rules and regulations. So a lot of times with weathering, you're taking a technique and you're using it, but with no assumptions, no preconceptions. Let the actual process itself and the stuff you're using, like the material, the paint, the brush, let that dictate how it comes out. You can exercise some control. Obviously you can weather an area or not weather an area. You can go as far as you want or stop. But a lot of times it's just a case of do what you need to do, and the piece and the brush and the paint will tell you how it's supposed to look. And that's done. Quite happy with that. And that's the effect we want. That was one load of paint on this brush. And you can see here, hopefully if it comes out on camera, we have brightness where the paint's taken and some little patchy dark areas where it's still gunmetal. Now the dry brushing will basically tone down that gunmetal. So you can see here, let's find another piece. See on that piece there, the gunmetal is now more of a warm browny colour where you can see it, just because there's a very light misting of the colour on there. And that's the idea. This is like airbrushing. It's like building up areas of wear and tear. So if I wanted to work on the middle of this, say, panel, I'd just very slowly start building it up. And you can dab and jab the brush in if you want, and it's a good way to build up little patches. I'll see if I can find a flat piece to show you the effect I mean, but that's what we're after. So let's do another one. Let's do this one, and I'll show you what I mean about building up the colour. So get some more paint, because that paint's about done now. Take it off on the tissue. Again, the trick with this is it's almost like you're replacing the airbrush with a brush. Now if you put loads of paint on this, then you're just painting on the surface and you'll just get big thick bits of paint. You might want that in areas where you want real exposed metal. But on this I want to be, so what I'll do is a little test piece on the inside, just to see. That's fine. Now, there's not a lot of detail on here. I'm going to take a bit more off. We've got this bit here. Now this goes that way, and if I go like this, it's just going to paint the middle bit. So I want to try and catch the edges, so we'll go that way initially. And then we'll do that way there. Just catch the edges. So yeah, if you put a lot of paint on, you're just basically then painting the edges. And what you might want that, like if I wanted that edge to be really bright, I'd make sure there's more paint on there. Now what I can do on this flat part here, I want to highlight this edge. So we'll do that. I'm running across the top of it. A little bit of pressure, but not too much. And if I'm lucky, what it'll do is it'll catch on the edges, and there'll be more on the edges than there will on the middle bit of it. Now on here, I want to catch the edges and bring the paint down. I want to suggest scraping that's gone like that, and that's why you're running from the edge in, because you'll get a subtle blend, but sometimes you get a little streak or a little scrape, and that just brings it to life. I'm catching the edge, but I'm dragging it across the surface a little bit. Like I said in the last video, again, go out and look at things in the real world. Trucks, structures that are steel. Go and look at things like unpainted handrails along the edges of roads. Like you get on a main road, there might be a pelican crossing or a zebra crossing or something. I just said zebra. I became American. Sorry about that. Zebra, it's because I watch so many American videos on model making. My friend Adam will be going, yes, he's become American. Hi Adam. Tony will be just face palming. Yeah, go and look at things like handrails on the sides of roads where they're not painted. It's just the metal, like at a crossing or something. You'll see there's like dark bits and patches. So what I want to do here, you can see here where I'm saying go with the flow and go where it takes you. You can see here I've got a bit more on this edge, a little tiny bit more. So I'm going to work with that. I'm going to expand that out. And again, I've been using the brush a little bit, so it's dried off quite a lot. So I'm just going to very gently work on that corner, still going from the edge and dragging it across. Bit more pressure. As the brush gets dry, you can use a bit more pressure. And I'm just going to tease that paint in from the edge. Hope you can see all this. And what I'm hoping to get, I'll do the same on this end. You can go for quite a while before you reload the brush. It's quite amazing. Especially when it gets to after a minute or two and you've not got much left, you can really do this kind of fading and blending. Now they are acrylic paints, and obviously acrylic paints dry really fast. Now I will say I've never had this kind of success with normal colours. It's only ever metallics that seem to do this for me, and I don't quite know why. Metallics are just awesome, and these are awesome, and this steel is really nice. So what you see now, hopefully it comes out on camera. If I move it around a lot, it's because I know I'm trying to catch the perfect light, so at some point you'll see what I mean. Because I've worked with that corner, and I've just very gently teased it, and I've got almost nothing left on the brush. I've got this fade from almost pretty much the steel colour, and it fades down to this bit here, where you can see there it's darker. And that's just because I've focused on this edge. Now I'm not thinking about it, I'm not going this brush stroke here and this brush stroke here. I'm just, you have to kind of go really zen and be at one. Just go where the paint takes you, go where the piece takes you. It's never going to be perfect, like on here. Yeah, I got paint on the insides, on these inside flat bits, and I was kind of hoping not to do that. But you know what? I can come back later with weathering products or washes and focus them on the inside panel so they'll be darker. This is absolutely perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. it looks like steel that's got some dirt and tarnishing around here, but this bit's nice and bright and these edges are nice and bright, and because I focused here as well, this edge becomes more bright.